Hey gamers, this is Maniac with GameAccess.net doing a bit of an impromptu video here, but I thought, why not do it? Today, if many of you know, the Sony PlayStation Vita is being released in the United States, and that means with the PlayStation Vita coming out, well, Sony's got another handheld that's probably gone. And I've had this thing since pretty much launch. And I wanted to just kind of talk about, for some of the people that are not upgrading to Vita or might be interested in what Sony had before the Vita, to see what happens with the Vita maybe. Maybe they're interested in just like a wait-and-see attitude, which is kind of how I am. I'm kind of on a wait-and-see attitude about the Vita. Especially after what was going on with the 3DS. A lot of people are probably wait-and-see on this. And maybe there might be, we'll see how the initial sales are. But, yeah, the trusty Sony PSP, which was released in 2005. This is a Model 1, PSP Model 1001, as it's known in the United States. In case you're curious, like what's with the extra one? The extra one meant that this was the United States model. I believe PSP 1000 was what was released in Japan. The models were different. And kind of the reason why I wanted to talk about this video is because I wanted to kind of show what I had, at least for my PSP collection. Now it's going to be kind of funny when you see this. I'm just going to kind of reminisce about some of these games, but I'm sure some of these games are probably either you could find in stores on shelves, or heck, probably download them on the PlayStation Network. But I never got involved with the PSP Go. I thought it was kind of a complete waste, but this was what the PSP 2000 model is. It doesn't exactly work. Battery I got when I got it was completely dead, and I haven't been able to find a replacement battery for it. They're kind of expensive. Even still, they're kind of expensive. And the batteries for these, they use a different voltage. They use a high capacity battery that are compatible with both of them, but the battery that this comes with out of the box is just not compatible. So little thing to remember. The cool thing about these PSP 2 models, from what I've been told, the screen on the PSP 1000 was probably the best at a comparison of all the screens, even with the 3000. But this is a lighter model. This is a smaller model. Here, I'll do a little quick comparison between the two. But one thing that I did also notice was that this actually does video out and Skype. I think it has some type of voice Skype support. This has no video out, which is another reason kind of why I'm waiting on the Vita, is because the first model Vita, and I've talked to Sony's engineers about this, will not have a video out, has no video out capabilities. When that was I think that was like the #1 feature and requested and was brought in the later model PSPs, was a video out. Why this is not included in the Vita is beyond my capabilities of understanding. But the one thing I don't like about this model is, I mean, look at this. I don't like how this rear door works. And I like this one a lot better. You have to little latch, and it secures and snaps in place. I like this rear door for the UMD drives a lot better. Also, another thing I wanted to talk about was really quick. I theorized a couple months ago that these might be on their way out too. This is the Sony Memory Stick Pro Duo. This was pretty much pretty ubiquitous. In fact, the camera I'm using takes these things too. They're pretty much being outmoded. I mean, because these are not going to be, there's not going to be a memory stick drive or any kind of memory stick slot inside these. The Vita is using its own proprietary memory stick. Even for storage, it's using its own proprietary memory stick. But the thing about it to remember is that nowadays, even the Sony cameras are coming with dual sockets. They support either the SD cards or the Pro Duos. And that to me means is that without, I mean, this doesn't support an SD card. Without these around to basically force you to buy a memory stick, with all the new Sony cameras coming out all having dual sockets, I mean, SD card is going to trump them, I think. And that's just my opinion, but, I just want to show a little bit of some of the games that I've picked up over the years. This is by no means like a complete list, but these are some of the games that I picked up, and if I picked them up, I thought they were pretty good, or at the very least they seemed interesting, and playing them were quite fun. But by all means, don't consider this a definitive list of must-haves. But certainly, if there's a lot of these games that I think if you haven't taken a look at and you've got a PSP, some of these, if I say so, are worth certainly taking a look at if you haven't picked them up yet. The first games I picked up for the Sony PSP were probably these two games right here, because they were launch titles. Ridge Racer and Metal Gear Acid. Now, Ridge Racer, as far as I'm concerned, I was never a racing games fan up to this point. Now, I know I've got copies on this shelf of like Project Gotham Racing 3 and 4 and just a bunch of other stuff. I'm sure Ridge Racer 6 is in there somewhere too. But this was like the first racing game I ever really played, and I thought it worked so perfectly for the Sony PSP with the wire. You know, granted, like I said, I hadn't had a handheld since the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, back in '89 or '90 or something like that. And so I thought everything was cool. It was like internet without, you know, connection without wires and all this other stuff. So I thought this game, when it came down to like launch titles that really took advantage of the system, this was certainly one of them. As for this, I picked this one up because it's a Metal Gear game, and I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. Was a little bit disappointed with it because, it, you know, as far as I can tell, it's not canonical to the Metal Gear story. It's its own little universe. But, and I never was able to beat it because it was really, really hard. But I picked it up because I was a huge Metal Gear fan. I thought the graphics were absolutely fantastic. I was really impressed by what they were able to do with it. So, it's certainly a fun game to mess around with. Gosh, let me just go through some of these others. Since we're talking about Metal Gear games, there is Metal Gear Acid 2, which was released day and date with, if not pretty close to, when they re-released the Metal Gear Solid 3 game, Metal Gear Subsistence. There is connectivity between Metal Gear Subsistence and this version of the game. However, I don't think that there's compatibility with the HD collection anymore. They might have taken it out. But it's cool if you want to take a look at that. This I picked up as kind of a misnomer. Unfortunately, I was never able to find a copy of Metal Gear Portable Ops when it was available. And right now, that game is really, really hard to find brand new. They took it off the market really quickly once this came out. But the problem is that, and this is what I was thinking about at the time, they didn't include the single player with this. They just didn't. There's nothing in here but the multiplayer component. Expanded, yes, but it would have been awesome if they included the single-player campaign, because they took out and they phased out the non-plus version of it. You couldn't find it anywhere. So anybody that wanted to play that single-player campaign like I did missed out, and I'm really disappointed about that. However, this and the single-player original campaign has been released to the PlayStation Network, so there's that. This one right here, I picked up for Christmas. I haven't played it yet, because you can see it's still in its wrapper. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which is a kind of a sequel to Portable Ops. Now, the cool thing about this game is that I did pick this up, but it got re-released with the Metal Gear HD collection, which is for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. But the cool thing about that is that the Metal Gear HD collection, at least this version of the game in the Metal Gear HD collection, is actually cross-compatible with this version of the game. So you can actually use a program that Konami designed called the transferring system to transfer your save games back and forth between the handheld and your Sony PS3. It's a really cool feature. I haven't made use of it, but if anybody's interested in seeing how that works, I'd be more than happy. Just post a comment. I'd be more than happy to show it on the video. But since I picked up the HD collection, I really haven't had a reason to play this on the handheld. I've just been playing it on my television. So there's that. So that's the Metal Gear games aside. I want to show a few more of these. This is probably the most recent game I picked up for the PS3. This is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Pretty classic Kingdom Hearts game. Fantastic graphics, fantastic art style, just on par with like what you had in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 and the PS2 version of Chain of Memories. However, one thing I really didn't like about the game was, well, there were two things. One was that all the environments that they kind of visit, at least early on, were all kind of girls. How do I put this? They're all girls' Disney movies. It was Cinderella and it was Snow White and stuff like that. Granted, Stitch did have a cameo and stuff like that, but I was kind of hoping to go back to some of those, you know, classic stuff. And I could say, well, those are universes that they had shown earlier that we hadn't seen in other games. And I get that, but really, I really wanted to see some, you know, some more variety in universes. The other thing was, I liked the battle mechanics in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 a lot better. I did not like the battle mechanics in Chain of Memories. I know they were going for something different. I get that, but I didn't like them. What I liked here was that they improved the battle mechanics kind of on Chain of Memories. I kind of felt like it was kind of an evolution of that. But if you had asked me, I probably would have just said I like the battle mechanics in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. You could have kept. I wish they had kept that. I really did. I like the gameplay a lot better. And I haven't been able to beat it because I've been playing on highest difficulty, and it's just I got stuck at a few boss fights. What is that? This I got from a cousin. He gave it to me as a gift. I haven't really played it, but this was done by Ben Studios. It's the Siphon Filter game. The cool thing was it kind of has the same gameplay as their later game, Resistance Retribution. Haven't beaten it. Haven't really played it that much, but I am a Siphon Filter fan. I like Siphon Filter 1 and 2. I haven't played up any of the other ones, but I did beat both of those games, so I'm glad to see that they were still using the Siphon Filter franchise. This one right here, Resistance Retribution, I've talked a whole podcast about that one, so everyone knows how my feelings are on this game. Haven't beaten it since the podcast, and the reason why is because those skill points are so frustrating. I just, again, put it down. I gave it a really good shot, but I'm a completionist, and let me tell you something. It was so frustrating to get some of those skill points, or heck, even some of the intel. This was like the hardest intel you could ever have to find. They really didn't have to make it that difficult. Just put it somewhere. Let me be able to grab it. It's not, it's not difficult. You had to do things and crazy things to get certain types of intel. It's just unnecessary. It's still got a fun game. It's still a fun game if you're not interested in like any of that stuff. Just playing through the levels is quite fun. The gameplay works pretty well for the PSP, even though again there's no second analog stick. It would probably have worked better on the Vita, I think. But I really wish also that there had been a cutscene viewer. So those are my complaints about it. But it's still a fun game to go through. Good for a little distraction. So there's all that, but I haven't played it yet. The next two games I wanted to show, these are classics. FYI, I picked this up day and date when it launched for $50. Yes, they used to charge premium price when these things came out, $50 at launch. They got rid of it. They stopped it. Now it got to the point where all the launch games were all $40, and most of the re-releases were all $20 by the more recent parts. But this was $50 when it launched. But let me tell you the truth, it was worth every penny. It's a great game. It had all the stuff that all the Grand Theft Auto games had up to that point. It was so much fun, but it was tough. Just like with Grand Theft Autos, eventually you're going to get to a mission where you just can't beat it, and you're just going to get sick of it. So there's that. Same thing with this one. Again, a really fun game. Reenacted Liberty City, all that other good stuff. But eventually, like I said, you're just going to get to a spot where you're stuck and you're not going to be able to play anymore. As far as I know, this does have a PlayStation 2 version of the game. I don't think this does. I don't think they ever released this. There was also some talk, I remember a long time ago, that they might have done a San Andreas version, but I don't think they ever did. But there was certainly talk about that. Okay, the next one. This was kind of a sister game. It was supposed to be released along the same time of this fourth Splinter Cell game, Splinter Cell Double Agent. In fact, it actually spoils some components about one of the two of the versions of Double Agent. But this was released months in advance of Double Agent, so it kind of did spoil stuff. It's still a fun game if you're a Splinter Cell fan, but it was very difficult to play around with because getting the battle mechanics around for Splinter Cell, getting it all into the PSPs without the lack of the second analog stick was very difficult. It was a really good try. I enjoyed it. I beat it, but I really wish that I was kind of hoping for maybe a longer game. For the most part, there was only like 2 or 3, maybe 4 new levels in the game. 1 or 2 extra ones that were super short. And a bunch of new cutscenes, but other than that, it really just was a bunch of levels that we had already played on other platforms. So there was that. Still pretty fun. Still Michael Ironside's voice. Okay, the next two I want to talk about. I mean, really, do I have to say anything about these two? These games were absolutely perfect. When it came down to the translations of all the God of War stuff. I picked these up as a huge God of War fan, and I enjoyed them tremendously. I want to talk about this one first. This one came out first. Great game. Had all the stuff that you would recognize from a God of War game. The great story, the great characters. The great gameplay, everything was intact. This was made right after God of War 2. I should say this was released right after God of War 2. It's probably made around the same time. I don't know how long the game development started with this, but it did have a lot of comparisons, I would say, to God of War 2, because it shared a lot of the gameplay mechanics, like the clinging to walls and stuff like that, which you couldn't do in the first God of War game. But great gameplay. Really hard on the highest difficulty. I wouldn't recommend playing it on the highest difficulty. Never was able to beat it on the highest difficulty. Really hard challenge maps. I, again, wasn't able to beat the challenge maps until this year. So just to tell you, this game has been out for quite a while. I only beat the challenge maps recently. Really hard. There's only 3 sets of unlockables. 1 for beating the game, 1 for beating all the challenge maps, and 1 for beating the game on the highest difficulty. And I haven't been able to do that last one. It's really tough. But really cool extras on par with the rest of the God of War games. As for this one, this was released after God of War 3. This is the most recent one. If you had gotten this at launch, you would have gotten a really good amount of extras with it, because they went all out with downloadable content for this game when it came down to extra skins for PS3 version of the game, extra skins for the PSP games, extra, just a whole lot of cool unlockables for getting this. For pre-ordering this game, as well as the documentaries, the roundtable discussion. So worth it. So totally worth it. However, the game was probably about 5 hours long. It was not a long game. And all the unlockables, for the most part, there was really no incentive to play the challenge maps. It didn't really unlock anything, at least not in this version of the game. There also really was only like one incentive to play the game on the highest difficulty, and that's like an extra map. Most of the incentives to play the game was in replay and replay and replay, because there was just so much stuff to unlock, but it was all unlocked through red orbs, and you can only get it by replaying the game constantly. You would find yourself playing the game. I must have played the game easily 5 times just trying to unlock the whole just everything in the arena and everything else. That having been said, that's barely because it's a short game. I would say maybe about 5 hours or so. So it's a good 5 hours. It's got some really good. It's got an interesting story, and it really kind of. I would say this game was designed around all the loose threads that they had in the other God of War games and stuff like that. But it's still short, so there's that. But it's a handheld game, so you can give it that. Okay, next up, I wanted to show this one. I picked this up for like $14. It's still in print, so you could probably pick it up for around the same price. Mortal Kombat Unchained. It's basically a port of Deception. That's basically it. If you like Mortal Kombat Deception, or if you're just a big Mortal Kombat fan, pick it up. It's basically just Mortal Kombat Deception. It's got some extra characters on it that Deception didn't have, because it was released around the same time of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. No, sorry, Mortal Kombat Armageddon. It's got Armageddon characters in it, like Blaze and stuff like that you can fight with. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It's basically just Deception, handheld Mortal Kombat game. But that's cool. That's right there. Next, I wanted to show my best for last. This is my favorite PSP game, and I've talked about it in the past. Infected by Planet Moon Studios. I love this game. If I want to pick all these other games, this is my favorite PSP game. And the reason why this is my favorite PSP game is because this was designed specifically for the PSP, with none of the other gameplays or any other games in a franchise to adjust how the gameplay had to be. This was designed to be arcadey, third-person action fun. The cutscenes were absolutely hilarious. The story was a blast. If I had any chance, this is the game I probably played the most out of. It is so much fun. I must have beat this game like 3 times. I had so much fun with this game. The multiplayer had really cool components to it and stuff like that, where you could spread around, like characters you beat, you could spread their infection around and stuff like that. So cool. So cool. I haven't seen other games really try that. I haven't seen other games with the battle mechanics like this, or with gameplay. You'd think that this was like exactly what a PSP game should be, and that this is what other games would imitate, but I hadn't seen any imitators. Heck, Planet Moon Studios never released a sequel to it. So that's kind of disappointing, but you know what? It was a fun game. I recommend it. This is probably harder to find because they took this game out of print almost immediately, but it's still so much fun. Well, that's all I have to say about it. The Sony PSP, farewell. I really liked it. And the cool little feature they had in it, I'm hoping that they put this in the Vita, is the remote play support, which you can play all like your PS1 games and stuff like that on here. You could like stream PS1 games from the PS3 to this using wireless. If you've got a Model 1 or a Model 2, you know, there might be, you're going to have to be pretty close in order to keep reception, but it's still a really good game. It's still a really cool mechanic to have in these handhelds. So that's all I really have to say about it. It was a great first step for Sony. I'm really looking forward to the PlayStation Vita. I'm probably going to just wait and see on it, though, because I certainly can't afford one. I don't know anybody else that can. And we'll just see how it is from there. And you can expect probably plenty of me talking about it. But this is my big farewell to the PlayStation Portable. Thanks for watching me ramble on. This is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Over and out. Take care, everybody.